What's going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you everything that you need to purchase a house financially. So we're going to talk about down payment, closing costs, inspection, appraisals, and everything that's going to cost you to purchase a house, right? The very first thing that we want to take a look into is, let's talk about the myth when it comes to down payment. When it comes to purchasing a house, a lot of people think that you need to put 20% down, which is false. You do not need to put 20% down, especially if you're a first-time buyer. I mean, if you're buying a house for $500,000, you do not have $20,000. I'm 20% down, right? The average person does not have 20% down, so it is a big myth. Even let's look at this, right? If you're buying a house of $100,000 and the average person does not have 20%, that's $20,000 just laying around to put down. So I'm just gonna let you guys know right from the start, you do not need to put 20% down to purchase a house, even your first or even your second house. When it comes to down payment, your down payment is going to be slightly different. So one thing about buying a house is a case-by-case scenario, right? What works for person A doesn't work for person B, right? Because there are different loan types. So with the loan types, your down payment is going to change. So for example, we're gonna go to number 2. So we're gonna talk about down payment and the loan type. So if you have a FHA loan, your down payment at minimum is 3.5%, right? Your down payment is 3.5% at minimum. If you have a conventional loan, your down payment at minimum is 3%, right? If you have a VA loan, your down payment at minimum is 0%. So as you can see, these are different loan programs and they all have their own different type of requirements. Now, the reason why a lot of people say, put 20% down is because of something. So there's something called PMI. PMI stands for Private Mortgage Insurance. Anytime you're purchasing a house and you're putting less than 20% down, the lender is going to require you to to have an insurance to protect them in case of, in case the buyer defaults, right? And I don't want to go into too much details, but as time goes on, there are ways for you to, be able to take off the PMI, or you can even purchase out of the PMI when you're purchasing the house. So there are different ways around it, but that's not the purpose of this video. So the purpose of this video is to educate you about all the financials, everything that you need to know about purchasing a home, the prices when it comes to money wise, right? Based on this example, if you're buying a $100,000 house and you're putting 3.5% down, that means it's gonna cost you $3,500. If you're putting 3% down on a $100,000 house with conventional loan, you only need $3,000. Same with VA, 0%. And there are other loan programs, but these are the 3 most common programs that everybody will get. For most people, it's either FHA or conventional. Now, if you're military veteran, then definitely you can get 0% VA loan. So now I want to talk about the next thing that's very, very crucial. It's very important. I mean, it's going to be very hard for you to purchase a house without paying closing costs. There are some cases that people, don't pay it, but just to be honest with you, there's a good chance you're gonna have to pay closing costs. So you might be wondering, what is closing costs? Closing costs are pretty much the cost associated with you purchasing a house. And the best way for me to explain this is to give an example. And the best example I always give is, if you buy a car, you buy a car from the auction or from the dealer, you're gonna take the car to the DMV or the MVA, right? You're going to need to register it. You need to pay for transfer taxes. You're going to do inspection on it, emission, all that good stuff, right? You need to do a lot of stuff on it, and you got to transfer it from one owner to another owner. That's pretty much what closing cost is, right? So there are costs associated with purchasing a home. Now you might be wondering, does closing costs, is it similar to down payment? No, because the money you spend for closing cost is gone, because you're using this money to close on the house. But on the other hand, the down payment, that money stays with the property because it is still your money. That's why when it comes to down payment, you have an option to put as much as you want. 3%, 5, 7, 10, 20, however it works for you. Closing cost is a range. It's not fixed, but it's always going to be a good range. So your closing cost most of the time is going to range between, let's say, 3% to 5% of your purchasing price, right? So you're buying $100,000 house, your closing costs can go from $3,000 up to $5,000. And closing cost is probably one of the most complicated things to explain, right? Because your closing cost can be 2%, to be honest. It can be 1% at a time. And your closing cost can be like 6%, 7%. It just depends on a lot of things. So I'm gonna break down what comes in the closing cost. And to make it easy, I'm just gonna share with you guys maybe like the most important things that come in the closing cost. So two, let me call it breakdown. One is your loan origination fees. Okay, what is this? When you're purchasing a house, you're going to be working with a lender. You're going to be working with a mortgage company, and the mortgage company is going to spend the next about 30 days with you, talking to you every day, getting documents, doing a lot of stuff, originating the loan. They're going to be working with processors. They're going to be verifying your income. They're going to be shopping for investors for you to purchase your loan. So they're going to do a whole lot of stuff, and there's a fee for them pretty much, right? The next thing is lawyer fees. You cannot purchase a house without lawyers pretty much, right? Because you're going to be transferring the title and the deed of ownership from one person to another, and you're going to need a lawyer that's going to go and file those documents for you. So you're going to need a set of lawyers that's going to make sure that this transaction is going smooth. They're the middleman between everything, especially when it comes to money and the transaction. So for example, you're purchasing a house and you need to give the seller some money, right? You're going to need to give them EMD. Who's going to owe the EMD? Most of the time, the title company is going to owe the EMD because they're a third-party company. They have no interest in the seller. They have no interest in the buyer. They're a third-party company. If anything happens, you have somebody that doesn't have interest in either party, right? So that's why it's good for us to work with a title company. And, they have their set of fees that they're going to be charging as well. Let's get to the more exciting parts. We have the transfer and recordation. You get what I'm writing. Transfer and recordation. So the transfer and recordation, pretty much fees, that's an amount that you pay when you're transferring a property from one person to another. You pay a transfer tax, and also you pay a fee to record it. In the state of Maryland, if you're first-time home buyer, your transfer and recordation is like half slashed into two. If it's supposed to be $2,000, you're gonna pay $1,000, right? Because you're a first-time home buyer. So, that's a benefit right there. Next one. This one gets confusing a little bit. Prepaid property taxes. Okay, so what is this? Prepaid property taxes. Let's say, for example, you're buying a house in August, right? Most likely, the seller might have paid for it already in the escrow account. So what you have to do is you have to refund them because taxes, well, in Maryland, I don't know about every other state, but in Maryland and surrounding areas, you pay your taxes twice a month, right? June and December. It's biannually. So if you're buying a house in August, you're going to need to refund the seller for the months that they've paid for already, right? So that's pretty much the prepaid property taxes. Next one I have is HOA transfer fees. Okay, so if you're in a community with a HOA, most likely you're going to pay the fees as well to move from to transfer to the HOA to your name and stuff, right? I mean, this doesn't really cost much, so don't worry about that. And then the last one I have is your homeowner insurance. Homeowner insurance is also part of your property taxes. Now, you might wonder what homeowner insurance is. The homeowner insurance is an insurance to protect you if something was to happen to the property. And the lender is a requirement, right? The lender, you have to have homeowner insurance. Some areas have to have flood insurance, right? If you're in a high-risk flood area, you gotta have flood insurance. But homeowner insurance is pretty much to protect the property against theft, wildlife experiences. The wind blows so much that the roof flew off, earthquake, something happens, the homeowner insurance is gonna protect you. So stuff like that, right? Now, there's one more I need to do it real quick. It's pretty much your title insurance. So sometimes people buy houses and they're like, man, I don't need title insurance. No, I don't want to pay for title insurance because, I mean, depending on the price of the home, title insurance can be like $2,000. It could be like $1,200, you get what I'm saying? So it could be quite expensive, but it's very, very important for you to have title insurance when you're purchasing a home, right? The reason is because, let me just give you a scenario. A year ago, let's say you're buying a house on, downtown, nice house, you fall in love with the house, and a year ago, the seller did some mechanical work on the roof. You know, it was gonna cost them $5,000. They paid $2,000. They owed the roofing company $3,000. But they decided not to pay. 9 months later, they're selling the house. You're buying the house. They didn't pay for the, remember they didn't pay the roofing company. Then you purchase the house. After you purchase the house, 1 month later, you get a letter saying, hey, you owe this roofing company $3,000, the balance and stuff. And you're like, wait a minute, I did not hire these people. Unfortunately, you bear the cost now, right? So that's why you have title insurance. What title insurance is going to do is protect you against any lien that the previous seller has on the property, right? If the previous seller owes anybody for anything or anything comes up, it's going to protect you and make sure that you are protected. And the fun fact is the lenders will always make you pay for what's called a lender's title insurance. When it comes to this title insurance, there are 2 levels to it and 2 protections. The lenders will always protect themselves by getting their own lender's title insurance in case if somebody comes and want to sue you out of the property and stuff. They want to make sure they get their money. And you as the owner, you want to make sure that you get your own titles insurance, so that way you don't somebody don't come and say, hey, I did work for you 2 years ago and you have no idea about it, right? These are pretty much the majority of things that comes up in your closing costs. And I had to really explain this part because closing costs is one of the most complicated things to explain to people. And now we're going to get to more fun parts. We're going to talk about the inspection and the appraisal process. So which one should we talk about first? Let's do appraisal since we have appraisal written here. You might be wondering, what is an appraisal? I'm sure you've probably heard that before. So how do I give a very simple example? So one of the most interesting things, I work with a lot of sellers, and one of the most interesting things that sellers think that they can do is randomly come up with a price and say, hey, my house is worth $750,000. Really? When you look at other houses around the neighborhood, they're like 500. All of a sudden yours is 750. So pretty much whenever you're buying a house, the bank is going to say, hey, you're buying this house for $500,000. How do I know that this house is actually worth this $500,000? What they're going to say, the seller's going to say it's worth it. The buyer thinks it's worth it, but the bank, they're not sure. So they're going to order what is called an appraisal. And an appraisal is done by a professional. So an appraisal is really a professional's opinion of the price of the home. It's very important. Anytime you're buying a house, do an appraisal. On average, appraisals are usually between $500 to, I'll just say $900 for this video. But most appraisals that I've seen are like $675, $575, somewhere around there. Next, I'm gonna go into inspection. We have inspection. Now, when you're purchasing a house, doing an inspection is up to the buyer, but I will always recommend you doing an inspection, right? Especially if you're buying a house that's resale or older. The older the home, the important the inspection is. Even if you're buying a brand new house, you still want to do an inspection because you never know what's in there. And you're over here trying to avoid $500, $600. Something can come up in the future, right? 2-3 months later after purchasing the house, and they're like, oh, you should have done an inspection to make sure the house is good. So who does inspection? That's a good question. Inspections are done by professionals. They're certified, they have license. And the one thing I like about inspection is that the inspector does not care about the agent, right? So I'm an agent. When I go and do the inspection, their goal is not for you to buy the house. Their goal is for you to inform you about the house. So it is definitely an unbiased opinion. They will tell you the good, they will tell you the bad. Now, one thing I always tell people about inspection is always going to sound scary. Even if you're buying a brand new home, they will always find something. Even if an inspector inspects the inspector's house, they're going to find a million things. There's no such thing as a perfect home. There will be, definitely be things. What we're really looking at when we're doing inspection is we're looking at like the structural aspect of the house, right? Does it have good bones, right? They don't even look at cosmetics and stuff. They really look at like the foundation. They look at the plumbing. They look at the electrical, all the nitty gritty of the house that makes it strong and stuff, right? How much does inspection cost? Inspection is usually same thing. So the thing about inspection is it really depends on one, the inspection company, 2, the square footage of the house, and 3, how old the house is, sort of, right? So most of the inspections that I've done in the past 7 years as an agent, they're usually between $300 to to $700. Now you might be wondering, what are the types of inspections, right? There are so many different types of inspections. So this price I put here is mostly for structural inspection. Types of inspection. One, we have structural, we have radon, we have termite inspection, we have mold inspection, we have septic inspections. As you can see, there are so many different types of inspections, but the most common type of inspection really is a structural inspection. And structural inspection is, like I explained before, is to make sure that the house has good bones in it. Plumbing, electric, HVAC, inspect the flooring, make sure like the house has good bones in it. The next one is radon inspection, and this is very important. Anytime you're purchasing a house, just Google the zip code, type radon next to it, and see if there's a lot of complaints about radon and none of those stuff in the area, then you will know if you need to do a radon inspection or not. A lot of time when you do an inspection, the inspector will recommend if you need to do these other inspections. So, sometimes we do the structural inspection and the inspector's like, okay, dude, you gotta do a termite inspection as well, just to make sure. Yeah, and that leads me to termite. And you guys know what termite is. If you're a VA, purchasing with a VA, you must do a termite inspection, and the seller usually pays for it. So termite is pretty much pest and other stuff. So if you suspect termites and anything like that in the house, you want to do a termite inspection. The next one is mold. You can always do a mold inspection if you suspect mold in the property, or you just want to be sure. The next one is septic. If you have a well tank, septic, any of those stuff in the property, then you definitely want to do a septic inspection as well to make sure that the house, everything is good and stuff. I pretty much covered everything, but there was one part I think I didn't mention. Not like I didn't mention, but it's part of it as well. So I'm just gonna open a new page, and I'm gonna call this new page other cost. First thing first is EMD. And I think I should have covered this when I was talking about the down payment. But don't be alarmed. EMD is really not an additional cost. It's always gonna be a part of your purchase, your closing costs and down payment. So I'm going to explain what EMD is to you. So pretty much your EMD is your earnest money deposit. Person A is buying a house, person B is selling the house. Person A gives person B the offer, but person A gives them an offer saying that, hey, if I back out of this house unlawfully, keyword is unlawfully, I am willing to lose this X amount. That is the easiest way to kind of explain what EMD is. So for example, let's say I'm buying a $100,000 house and we'll put down 1%. So most EMD are generally 1%. It's not any serious amount. It's just an amount to say, hey, I'm purchasing this house. I'm a serious buyer and I'm willing to lose this money if I back out unlawfully. Keyword, unlawfully. So 1%, right? That's $1,000, right? So I'm buying this house, $1,000. Now, one thing you need to understand about EMD is that money is going to be applied to your cost, to your closing cost. If, for example, your closing cost on this $100,000 house, let's say it was going to be $6,000, right? I'm just giving an example. But because you've already put this EMD down, we're going to subtract $1,000 from it, right? We subtract $1,000. Now you're only going to pay $5,000 because you've already submitted EMD of 1K. So that's what I was trying to explain when I said that EMD is part of your closing cost. You do not lose the money. It's just money that you're putting up front. You're going to get it back pretty much at the end of closing. I mean, that's pretty much everything you need to know, all the financials when it comes to purchasing a house. The other part that I really want to talk about is just saving money for moving in expenses, right? And this has nothing to do with purchasing a house, but I just always advise my clients to make sure that, I don't know how much it's going to cost you to move and other good stuff, but to plan for it, right? So for example, you're buying a house and it might cost you $5,000 to move. You want to make sure that you have a budget for it. I'm going to go back to the previous page because I just remembered one key thing that is very important, and that is in the closing cost. Now, in the closing cost, there's something called seller's credit. There's a lot of terms around it, but seller's credit, concession, a lot of different things, right? But seller's credit is pretty much when the seller gives you some money towards your closing cost, right? Seller's help. Seller's helping you to reduce the closing cost of your house. For example, originally it was gonna cost you $6,000 to close on the house. Remember that you put $1,000 EMD. Now, the seller is also willing to give you $1,000. Sellers are always willing to give you 1%. And the number ranges. It always depends on a lot of different situation and a lot of things, right? So I'm gonna call these 1,000 EMD, and then I'm gonna give you another $1,000, and we're gonna call that help, right? Now, all you need is $4,000 for your closing cost, and you're good to go. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty much all I have today. Guys, this is my very first video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Share this video with anybody that's looking to purchase a house. And if you're buying a house with me, I'm gonna be sending you this video, and I hope that you watch it all the way to the end. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Let's go.